Good morning, or good afternoon, depending where you're in Canada. To everyone, welcome back to day 2 of the 11th annual Canadian Restaurant Investment and Leadership Summit. For those of you who are joining us again, welcome back. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, my name is Dimitri Mazur. I am with CWB Franchise Finance, your hosts for this week, and I'm going to be your virtual MC for today and for the balance of the week. Before we start today, I wanted to go through a few housekeeping items again to reiterate how you can participate in today's sessions. So we have an hour and 15 minutes booked for today's CEO panel discussion, and you will have the opportunity to submit questions throughout today's presentation by typing your questions into the Q&A area on the right-hand side of your screen. Should we not get to all the questions, we will follow up with you after the event. A kind reminder that the session is being recorded and we will send out links next week for your reference. For those who weren't with us yesterday, we will be sending out an email later today with a link to download a copy of the 2021 Canadian Chain Restaurant Industry Review, a document that provides insights and data on the industry. And within that same email, there will also be a link to provide your feedback on today's session. A second reminder, after today's CEO panel, there will be roundtable discussions taking place in the networking tab. Again, up to 25 people can attend each roundtable discussion. Finally, I want to provide a recap on why we are here today. So CWB Franchise Finance has been hosting the Canadian Restaurant Investment and Leadership Summit since 2010, making this the 11th annual event. And although things look a little different these last 2 years, we are honored to continue to help bring the industry together with this summit and encourage you to connect, network, and engage with the attendees on the event platform throughout the week. Again, today is day 2 of the summit. We will be back here on Wednesday and Thursday this week with 4 more sessions. So before we start today, I want to again take a moment to thank all of our sponsors for their support and participation with this year's summit. We simply can't do it without them. So our platinum sponsors, Chicken Farmers of Canada and Cisco, our gold sponsors, 7 Shifts, Attitude Marketing, Castles, Garland Canada, and Uber Eats. Our silver sponsors, Coca-Cola, Dairy Farmers of Canada, Interac, and Sodos. And our bronze sponsors, Foodbuy, J. Ross Hospitality, Recruiters, Kitchen Partners, Measure Up, Osler Dash, Smooth Commerce, SBLR, Weeks Construction Group, and XTM Inc. We also want to provide a special thank you to Menu Magazine and Restaurants Canada for being our media partner, and the NPD Group, our premier research sponsor, as well as fsSTRATEGY for their contribution to the 2021 Canadian presentation. We'd like to say, again, a special thanks to Cisco, today's feature sponsor, so check out their sponsor page and connect with them in the exhibit hall after the session. And now let's get into today's discussion, the CEO panel. One of the most popular sessions during the Canadian Restaurant Investment and Leadership Summit is our CEO panel. Each year we ask leaders to join us for candid conversations, sharing their views on the industry and the market. This year's panel is a group of creative entrepreneurs from some of Canada's most innovative brands. And I'm going to now pass it over to today's moderator, Todd Barclay from Restaurants Canada, to introduce today's panelists and lead the discussion. So over to you, Todd, and welcome everybody.
Thank you, Dimitri. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the CEO panel. It's my pleasure to be here today with all of you. This is a wonderful industry event, and I'm honored to have the chance to moderate the CEO panel. Dimitri, to your point, we have an exceptional group of very creative entrepreneurs who have developed and grown some incredible brands across the country. We're going to hear from them about how they've managed through the pandemic, how they differentiate their brands, and get insights from them on the future of the restaurant industry. So let's get to it. With me today are Mandy Wolfe of Mandy's Gourmet Salads, Ryan Moreno of Joseph Richard Group, James McInnes of Odd Burger, and Court Desautels of Neighbourhood Group of Companies. Thank you all for joining us today. Hi, everyone.
Hey, Todd.
How's it going? Great to see you. So before we dive into the discussion, some watching today may not know a lot about each of you. So it would be great if you could start by telling us a little bit about yourselves, your backgrounds, and your operations. So Mandy, why don't we start with you?
Sure. Hi, so honored to be here today. My name is Mandy Wolfe, and I'm the owner and founder of Mandy's Gourmet Salads. We're a chain of privately owned gourmet salad restaurants in and around Montreal. And I started the company with my sister 18 years ago. I'm in charge of all the food content, recipe curation. I'm basically the head chef and creative behind the food, and my sister runs the design and marketing division of our chain. So we're currently in Montreal. We've got over 350 employees, and we will be opening up in Toronto in the next year. And we're super excited about that, and we can't wait to get our food all across Canada. So happy to be here today.
That's great, Mandy. Welcome. Thanks for being here. Looking forward to chatting with you a little bit more and learning more about your operations and your relationships and how you've been working with your sister over many years. Next up, Ryan. Let's hear from you.
Yeah, thanks, Todd. Happy to be here today as well. It's an honor to be on the panel with such great leaders in the industry. I'm Ryan Moreno, co-founder, CEO of the Joseph Richer Group. Started in the industry when I was 14 as a busboy. My partner Andre and I have been best friends since grade 4, and we've grown the company. We started 11 years ago, grown it to 25 pubs and restaurants, one of which was in the top 100 in Canada, 4 liquor stores, 2 winery operations, a new golf and country club location, a boutique hotel, a rapidly growing catering, and about 150 virtual restaurants at the moment. So excited for the future of the industry, given the last year and a half we've had, but excited to be here today.
Thanks, Ryan. That's great. Incredible diversity of brands. Looking forward to learning more from you. And also, it's just incredible to hear the stories of folks who started at such a young age and have accomplished so much. So welcome. Great to have you here today. Next up, James.
My name is James Mickens. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Oddburger, and we are Canada's first vegan fast food chain, actually. And we have 6 locations operational in Western Ontario, with 4 more under development. And we're going to be having around 20 locations operational about this time next summer. So a lot of growth for us going forward. But yeah, we basically make plant-based versions of iconic fast food. So all the favorite things that we love to eat, but with less guilt. And so that's kind of what we do. And we're also expanding into the U.S. market in early 2022 as well. So that's a little bit about us.
Very cool, James. Thanks for sharing. Looking forward to digging in a little bit more to your concept and your menu and some of the different ways that you're differentiating yourself. And last up, Court.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for the intro, Todd. And yeah, like Ryan said, just a great honor to be here with so many great business leaders in this industry. We faced so many challenges over the past few months, and it's nice to start being on the other side of things. The company I run is the Neighbourhood Group. We're based in Guelph, Ontario. We have 5 restaurants. 2 go by the name of Borealis Grill and Bar, Guelph and Kitchener. We have Majida Cafe Bistro, Park Eatery, which we just opened before the pandemic, and the Woolly Pub, where it all started. It's a family business. My father started the pub in 1990, and since that iteration, we've always focused on local food and craft beer. One of the first craft beer bars in Canada, and we just kept expanding, redefining what local means, and most recently certified as a B Corporation in 2016, being Canada's first restaurant group to achieve that, and looking to expand our operations and tackle some of our industry and our nation's social and environmental challenges.
Thanks, Court. We're going to talk a little bit more about B Corporation as well, and full disclosure to the group and also to you, I have spent a little bit of time at the Woolly Pub over the years there in a very great town of Guelph. So we've got a lot to unpack today. So much is going on in our industry. As I mentioned, we're going to talk about what's been happening, and we're also going to be talking about the future. However, in order for us to get started, certainly I think that it would make a lot of sense for us to talk about, effectively what's been happening over the last 19 months and how we've been able to survive such a catastrophic and very, very tough time for our industry. So I'd like to spend a little bit of time with each of you talking about, what were the key ingredients for you to get through the last 19 months. So I'd like to start with Cord, and maybe Cord at the same time, if you could also share in that story in terms of your ability to move through this very tough time. Share with the group what you mean by the B Corporation, because I'm sure there's probably a few people who are Googling exactly what that is right now.
Yeah, well, it has nothing to do with honey, so it's not bumblebees, as a lot of people think we are. We do have pollinator gardens in many of our restaurants. But what a B Corporation is essentially it's a full audit on your operations. You have to be a for-profit entity, and it's a new way of looking at capitalism, I would say. So we're audited on our environmental initiatives, into our community initiatives. What do we do for our employees, for our guests, and how governance works, and through transparency and everything else. So we're graded on each one of those categories. There's very few restaurants that are listed as a B Corporation. In total, I think they're just shy of 4,000 companies across throughout the world that are certified now, spanning, I believe, 75 countries and 125 different industries. And so that's what we're looking at is, we're a for-profit model, but we put people and the environment first. We consider those as some of the key stakeholders in how we drive our business, and they're integral in all the decisions that we make. And I think, tying into that really helped us on the onset of the pandemic. One of the big things, obviously, we shut down 4 of our locations, kept one of our newest location going to the fast casual concept, and ended up working out perfectly. We actually introduced curbside pickup before anybody knew what curbside pickup was, about 6 months prior to the pandemic hitting. So it really set us apart. And then we started looking at, not just what the issues that we're facing in our business, because we've at this stage we figured we'd be able to navigate through these challenges. I think the biggest concern, what we were seeing beforehand, was staffing. How do we ensure we don't lose all these great people that we have in the company? And I think one of the proudest moments we've had in our company was when we created an employee relief fund. Right at the onset of the pandemic, we spent 3 weeks selling gift cards and donated 100% of those to our staff. And those 3 weeks we raised just under $60,000. And then we created a whole grant system to help people pay for rent and groceries, childcare, maybe it was a laptop for school. There's so many different areas that we had never experienced before, and that's what we learned all the things about becoming a B Corporation, the importance of the people in our organization, and then just really put that into high gear at the onset. And it's been able to maintain our staff. We have kept all of our key people, and we've actually attracted a lot of great people into our business right now as well.
These are amazing stories, Cord, and certainly we're going to spend a little bit more time later on talking about issues related to labor, and we're going to unpack a little bit as well the whole off-premise opportunity and how things have shifted. So I appreciate you bringing forward those key pivot items, and also the time that you spent ensuring that your staff was well taken care of, and we're with you through this. Ryan, I think you can share some similar stories of perseverance as well, and as you and I spent some time together preparing for this, you talked about the importance of diversity of brands as well. So can you share with the group how it is that you got through the past 19 months, and share some of the key ingredients that have you still here with us?
Well, I think prior to the pandemic, the diversity in the company has always been sort of a kind of a core DNA to what we do. A lot of it started, certainly opportunities we saw in the industry, but a lot of it was also to present and explore opportunities for our team. So trying different concepts in terms of restaurants, certainly getting into, catering and things like that. So actually a couple of years before the pandemic, actually, I think 2017, we saw the virtual restaurants sort of just saw where the industry was heading that way. So we started in doing that, exploring that. We launched 100 virtual restaurants in one day back in April 18. I think similar to what Cord had said, is that over the pandemic, obviously all of our dine-in was closed, like everyone. Catering was at a grinding halt, but our virtual restaurants delivery was was insane. It was very, very busy. So, we were really fortunate. We were able to, we had just over 1,000 employees at the start of it, and we were able to keep, obviously your servers and your staff working in the restaurants were laid off, but we were able to keep our entire leadership team, admin team, everything with the amount of volume we had from delivery. So yeah, so it was good. We were really fortunate that way. I mean, I think we pivoted to a lot of different things, and a lot of them was also, we've always been very involved in the community and trying to be present and really engage with different, organizations and things like that. So yeah, we did a number of different, sort of community activations via meal kits. We even had a plant shop in our parking lot at one of the actually a number of the restaurants for a local supplier that we had done big Christmas events with. So, I mean, it was quite a spectrum of things that we had to, probably like everybody, pivot to find, keep our team working, and still at the same time try to find opportunities. And so we actually ended up, creating some really great new partnerships and building on some existing ones. So, yeah, that really helped us kind of get through it.
The word pivot, became part of all of our vocabulary, certainly through the last 19 months. But one of the inspiring things for me in this industry is what you just talked about in terms of engagement with community as well. There's so many stories of restaurants across the country that engage with their community and help their community through such a tough time for themselves. And again, very, very inspiring stories to hear about. And James, you have a different concept, and certainly, as you mentioned, the first to come into the vegan space in Canada. Talk with us about how you were able to work through the past 19 months.
Yeah, for us, the pandemic was an interesting time. We sort of came into it. We were always a quick serve restaurant, so for us, we just did more of what we already had done, which is takeout. So the pandemic was actually a good time for us. Like, we had strong sales, and we weren't too affected, to be honest. But actually, during that time, we ended up taking our company public on the Toronto Stock Exchange, because it was just, there was so much craziness happening on the plant-based sector in terms of like capital investment going into that area. So we really used that time to raise a lot of capital to build an exceptional management team, and to sign a whole bunch of deals in real estate, because there was a lot of opportunities, I think, during the pandemic to get some good properties, and things were opening up that was previously kind of difficult to get into. So for us, we really just used the pandemic as like a high growth time for us, because I think everyone in the restaurant industry knew that one day this would hopefully end, right? I think we're starting to see the end of that now, which is great. So again, we just use it to fuel our growth, and it was a successful strategy for us, and now we're sort of well positioned, for the future. So yeah, it was actually a great time for us.
James, you bring up an interesting point about the opportunities for growth for some concepts during the past 19 months. And you also brought up the whole publicly traded piece of your story. So I want to come back to that in a couple minutes. But before we dive in a little bit more into the future and opportunities for growth and where this industry is going, I'd like to talk a little bit with Mandy to hear more about your story and what's happened over the past 19 months for you.
Yeah, it's very similar to what Ryan, Cord, and James have been sharing, in terms of making sure that we took care of our staff and our admin teams and our head office, as well as helping and hoping to provide services for our community, and also our suppliers. We had a lot of suppliers that relied heavily on schools, on sports bars, on nightlife, and they were sitting on tons of inventory at the beginning, perishable goods. And we also were seeing, even ourselves, we had such difficulty getting to the grocery stores and getting access to food. So we started to use our restaurants as mini grocery stores and helping our suppliers move their inventory so that nothing was spoiled. We started putting together grocery kits, and we also, we're trying to go above and beyond just surviving and, continuing with our business, wherein we were making meal kits and grocery boxes for a lot of the seniors' homes that were in Montreal. I don't know if maybe the news covered it where you were, but we had a lot of crises in the seniors' long-term facilities here. So we were sending meals to staff that were helping out. We were sending meals to hospital workers. It was really like grassroots. We had our husbands on motorcycles and cars delivering boxes every day. It was an extreme team building exercise. I'm not saying I would like to repeat a global pandemic to get that, proximity and shared experience with our teams, but looking back on it now, it really strengthened a lot of our relationships, with our teams, with our suppliers, with our community. And, I think in these times of adversity is really where where you can shine as well, and not just stress out and suffer. So similar to James, what you were sharing in terms of takeout, we've always been a quick service restaurant. We do have dining halls as well, but we had to close those. So there was a ton of third-party delivery. Luckily, we had secured some good deals with them beforehand, so we weren't like a lot of the restaurants that were struggling to just stay afloat and having to sign these contracts with third party, which is, we all know it's very hard to make a profit off of when they come in with, quite a high commission oftentimes. So that was great. We did a ton of curbside pickup. We really pushed our app. We had an app in place before, so that came in incredibly helpful. And we just tried to get everything out, groceries, food. We started bottling all of our dressings. Our dressings are in supermarkets now. It was a real time for creativity in terms of how to get the food to as many people that needed it. And, as a customer, and, we're all humans, we all have to eat. How can you make that as easy and as seamless as possible? So it was a good brainstorming time for us and put all of our creative minds to use.
You're picking up on a topic I want to talk about in terms of, what will persist, post this pandemic period. What will we continue to focus on? What did we learn and have realized will actually help us in terms of our business moving forward? But before I go there too, Mandy, when you and I had the chance to talk, you talked about one of the things you're very proud of is how you started this business and your relationship with your sister. So I'd love for you to share that with the group as well.
Yeah. So my sister and I, we're two of four children growing up, and her and I came up with this business idea 18 years ago. And it's not often, and it's not often heard of that you can work successfully and harmoniously with family members. So it's not only something that is dear to my heart because she's my sister, and we're cut from the same cloth and we share the same values, but we really have overcome so many obstacles together. And I often look at other presidents and CEOs and founders that are doing this on their own, and my sympathies really lie with them because there's so many decisions that we have to make every single day, and sometimes it's a very lonely place to be, and it can be isolating and it can be stressful when you have somebody by your side, like a real partner, and in this case a family member who I trust implicitly. And we're very different in terms of our strengths and our talents, and but we really balance each other out, and it's something that I'm very proud of. I couldn't have done this without her, and she would say the same thing if she were here with me. And I think having that strength in our partnership and in our friendship has helped us tremendously, and it's led us to really be authentic and true. You're really yourself when you're with your family. So that's, I think, helps to lead our business with a lot of sincerity and heartfelt, vision. We are a business at the end of the day, but we've done it a little bit maybe unconventionally in that sense. So I still love her, and I still want her to be my partner. And it's not something you can say after 18 years of being in business with someone, especially a family member. So that's something we're very proud of.
I love that story. So I definitely wanted you to get the chance to talk with everybody about. I mean, I think it's true. I mean, ultimately, it's great to have people that you work with that you can trust, and it's probably not often that maybe works perfectly with siblings. So it's wonderful that that's been able to be a positive for you and something that's helped your business to thrive. I want to continue with the theme around what will continue. I heard many of you talk about the different ways that you pivoted. You talked in some cases about off-premise. You talked about grocery. You talked about ways that you moved business outside your four walls. So and Ryan, you alluded to this a little bit too as it relates to ghost kitchens or virtual space. Talk to me a little bit more about that. And I know there's another panel that will be happening tomorrow or the next day on this, but interested in talking specifically about off-premise. Will this continue? Will this sustain? And is it sustainable from a cost perspective?
Well, that's a lot to unpack there, Todd. But yeah, I mean, I think I don't think it's a trend. I mean, I think this is clearly it's something that is here to stay. I think you know, if anything, gone are the days of only a couple of options of food delivery. I think you know, the public has spoken, and they wanted sort of elevated, and they wanted, you know, similar brands and experiences in their homes as they would when they go out to dine. So, you know, and I've been present for a lot of discussions as to, you know, who, you know, is that, does it cannibalize the business? How does it work? I mean, my personal view, I mean, I think, you know, I don't know, personally, when I'm at home and I get, you know, skip the dishes or DoorDash or whatever, I'm not going out. So, I mean, I think that, again, I think so in terms of the future, I think that's something that's here to stay. I know that one of the questions also was that, you know, is there still room for that 180 seat restaurant? Is that still a thing? And so, I mean, I think that I think they're two very different things. I think that people want elevated dining experiences in their home or wherever they are. And I think as far as dine-in, you know, I think there's, I mean, I hope there is anyway. I do believe that it's all about experiences. And I think that people will continue to crave, you know, whether it's a winery sitting outdoor amongst vineyards or things like that, people are still going to want those sort of experiences with, you know, friends, family, what have you.
As I talk to different operators across the country, I hear this, you know, the same thing. And ultimately, people are looking for experiences. And, you know, as much as we've determined ways to take our brands and our products outside of our four walls, there's still a desire for folks to come into restaurants. Court, I'm interested in your thoughts on this as well. And, you know, certainly as it relates to your business, and maybe even as you think about future growth, will you be looking at different types of locations to grow into because of some of these changes, or do you think things will stay status quo?
No, yeah, for us, it was obviously the pandemic really made us look internally into our organizations, and it really highlighted a lot of the weak points. And we started going down the road first of, you know, how much delivery are we doing? Are we going to do meal kits? Are we doing groceries, et cetera? And one thing that we found was really successful for us was just creating a whole meal replacement. People wanted restaurant quality food, but maybe they don't want it now, but we could provide them with larger family style versions of our food that they could heat and serve at another point. And that became very successful for us. So I see that being a great piece of business that's going to grow for us as we continue you know, to have great experiences within the restaurant. The other parts, what we've seen before is the whole component of online. Everybody, as you know, we're doing this conference online. And so we started offering community event series. We were offering free yoga. We had a children's storyteller to help distract children during the day for kids. So offering free online components. So I think we'll continue to offer something along those lines, help out the community. And then we just started before the pandemic, and it was pretty difficult to navigate all the rule changes because the rule changes were happening so quickly. But we started building out experiences with other tourism organizations in our community. So, for example, Borealis and Kitchener, we have a canoeing the Grand River operation just down the street for us. So we're starting to build out programs where, you know, group outings. The business lunches that always come into our spaces, maybe they don't feel comfortable doing that anymore, but they can still do team building exercises outside. And we can provide boxed lunches and they get a real, you know, a real experience that you typically wouldn't have thought of before, getting restaurant quality food delivered to that, or to be able to come into the restaurant afterwards and do those things. So I think there's a lot of opportunity. You're going to see a lot of collaboration between different groups. That's going to be kind of the catalyst for, especially for the in dining operations like ours.
The word collaboration makes me think about something that Mandy brought up. James, I'm going to come to you in a minute on this publicly traded idea again, but Mandy, maybe just to quickly talk about collaboration. You talk about retail, right? So some brands through the past 19 months have and before that actually have expanded their products into retail. How did you make that decision? And is it something that you think will continue and you'll actually look for more opportunities going forward?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that we've always wanted to do. It's funny, after our most popular salad, the next highest selling SKU is our homemade chocolate chip cookies. And it's something that I've been baking since I was 11 years old, and I think people like that balance of healthy and a little bit indulgent when they come and have a real buttery cookie. So we thought for years, let's get our products out there that are easy, that you're at the grocery store, you can pick up a bottle of dressing, you can get a frozen cookie dough, you can get a marinade, and it's something that people have always asked us. And we even had people over the years coming in with empty, screw top wine bottles, a case of 12 empty ones washed out, saying, can you refill this with your dressing? So the demand was there in a very, organic way. And we thought, well, why not? There's so many restaurant brands that have developed wonderful lines of whether it's, pasta sauces or marinades or raw, prepped stuff that you can pick up at the grocery store and make at home. And this also came in line when we released our cookbook, our first cookbook, actually in the summer of 2020. It was slated to be released in April 2020, and we found it a little bit lacking tact to be promoting a cookbook when it felt like the world was falling apart. So we waited, and there was a huge outpouring of our fans saying, we're stuck at home. We want to eat. It's our one pleasure when everything is falling, to pieces around us. Give us something. So there's definitely a demand there, and we're super excited. We're going to be launching a new line of oils and vinegars and different marinades for barbecue season, after this winter. And I think it's a wonderful way to complement the business and expand the brand nationwide. It's really cool to see pictures of our salad dressings being sold in small markets in BC, when our brick and mortar is only here in Quebec. So we love seeing that.
That's really cool. Go ahead, Ryan.
I was just going to add something to what Mandy said, and actually in court. It's awesome to hear some other companies that did some, things very, very far off of what your core business was pre-pandemic. And I think that, it's important to point out that I think that a lot of the collaboration for us, that was a great, and we did a little bit of that before the pandemic, but I think it's really showed us that with a lot of the collaboration can present a lot of opportunities. And like I mentioned, some of those plant pop-ups really engaged our community. I mean, we were just trying to help a local business that was also going through the same situation that we were. Stores were closed. They had inventory that, obviously dies at the end of the season. So, we were helping them move a lot. And it was, so that collaboration created partnerships for, with another different supplier, a local farmer. So it's created some big opportunities for the company later on. So I think that, we had a pop-up in one of our stores and brought together a bunch of the community, a bunch of small shops. And now that pop-up was extremely busy for a new division with our catering to do a lot of baking and things like that. So you talked about the cookies and stuff, Mandy, that's fantastic. We were doing these things at the time. We were just trying to keep our staff working and try to look after as many of our people as possible. At the same time, be engaged with the community and try to help where we could. So it was just, if anything was positive the last 2 years, it was awesome to see that it is possible to do, to create win-win scenarios. Those collaborations actually create opportunity.
Yeah, Ryan, I think you're right on with those comments. Certainly, as was mentioned earlier in our discussion, adversity really drives this ingenuity, right? And drives you to come up with new ideas and push outside of your comfort zone and do different things. So it's neat to hear those stories in retail. And some of what Court was talking about, where we now live in this virtual world where it's easier to connect in different ways. Mandy, your ideas as it relates to connecting your brand across the entire country now through retail, really represents an opportunity for you to grow and expand your following.
Well, and Court talking about those meal kits and stuff like that, we created these Thanksgiving meals and turkey meals for Thanksgiving and Christmas that, again, just involving a few people in the community, it became a 6-figure business for us the last 2 years. So now that's a new vertical that we just have that helps. And so anyways, to beleaguer the point, but I think it's fantastic.
James, you talked about being publicly traded, so I'd like to go back there because I think this is pretty unique for our industry. So I'd like to hear a little bit more about how you made that decision and what the future state of that is for you, or how, if you would recommend that to other operators out there, and maybe also touch on the for your brand.
I think for us it was sort of timing, to be honest, I think it's kind of a decision I think that every owner needs to make it at some point and because it's not for everybody, to be honest. And every business is going to have, the right time to do it or not, because there are advantages to being publicly traded and there are definitely disadvantages to being publicly traded, and I think for us, the rationale doing that was that primarily we wanted to go into like a rapid growth mode. We were ready to really expand. We had our manufacturing center built, and because we make all of our own food in our own manufacturing center. And so we were really kind of positioned to have that rapid growth. And so, but at the same time, we didn't want to get any like venture capital involved, because the one thing that I think, especially when you're a business like ours, we're driven by our ethics, being a vegan company. The founders are all vegan. We didn't want to have like external control that was like not aligned with our ethics. And I think there's always a risk in that whenever you take capital from somebody. There's always a little bit of I think a warning that goes with it, making sure that they're aligned with what you're doing, because sometimes that's not the case. So by going public, the great thing about it is that it's just us. There's no involved. If people want to invest in a company, you can just go buy our stock on the stock market. So it gives the average everyday person the ability to support what you're doing financially from anywhere in the world. So which is really cool. So so for us, it's a great vehicle to access capital without losing control. But it's a very difficult process. It's extremely expensive, very difficult, super challenging. The hardest things about it are, making sure your financials are in order, because I think lots of times when you're running a business, you don't expect that you're going to go public like in 2 years, but if you don't have your books in order and your financials done properly and your systems in place and you have every dollar accounted for and you can explain everything, you're not going to be able to do it. So I think it's kind of sometimes hard to have that forward-looking vision, right? Because we're just kind of like looking at what's happening now, what's happening today. But luckily for us, just being a technology kind of person myself, I had just put those systems in place, so it wasn't too bad for us. But still, it's a very challenging and difficult thing to do. Probably one of the hardest things I've ever done.
And thoughts in terms of retail opportunities for your brand?
Yeah, we are launching a retail line. So and part of the process of going public again was to launch that line. We're not going to be launching it under our Odd Burger brand. It's actually going to be branded under a separate retail line. But yeah, again, part of the rationale for doing that is the ability to sort of further monetize our manufacturing capacity. So the idea is that we're not necessarily doing the same products that are in our restaurant, but we'll have like home versions using like the protein basis and a lot of the technology we developed for our own chain. So it's definitely in the works, and we hope to launch that in early 2022.
That sounds exciting. As I mentioned to Mandy, it does really represent an opportunity for you to explode your brand out into much bigger markets and help from a marketing perspective. So it's going to be fun to see your products in retail.
No, for sure.
I want to turn a little bit more towards kind of where we're going and some of the the issues that we're going to still have to overcome, and your thoughts in terms of where we're going from an industry perspective. Certainly, hopefully, most of the pandemic is behind us. I would expect that there's definitely going to still be some bumps in the road and some things that we're going to have to deal with as it relates to our industry and the economics of our industry, from supply chain, labor issues, of course, as well as some of the other things that we're challenged with in terms of costs and inflation going forward. Court, maybe I can just turn to you to start this discussion as it relates to supply chain and issues related to cost of goods. What are you seeing, and what are you doing from a business perspective to help to offset some of these challenges?
Yeah, it's a good question. We just had a leadership call this morning, just addressing some of these things, because one, we're very locally focused. So we're buying everything we're based in Ontario. We just had an announcement today that minimum wage is going up, and that usually has a direct impact on our cost of goods because of the local market that we deal with. So how do we mitigate that, just besides increasing costs? The consumer's can only take so much. I think was it McDonald's put through a 6% increase and not really much of a bat of an eye. We've seen people going up to 20%. but we have to be very, very cognizant of the impact that everybody's going through. And so really now digging into the efficiencies of our operations, and a lot more crossover on menus. So really digging into menu engineering. That's where I think we see it really coming through, seeing where we're, anything that we can adjust with costs. We're looking at, for, costs of proteins, for example. So beef, we partnered with Beef Farmers of Ontario and Mushrooms Canada, and we designed a blend and extend program. So we're mixing in more plant-based mixes in with some of the proteins we have, keeping costs down, keeping things even healthier as well too for the guests. And really trying to dig into labor, right? Labor is going to be our biggest challenge, and we're such in a hard spot for finding people right now. And I think, that's not just a symptom of the industry. I mean, symptom of the pandemic, but also a symptom of the industry, and trying to get more people seeing value in the work that they're doing within our organization. So we've implemented things, health benefit programs. We have a health and wellness programs, education funds, just to attract some top talent people, because we know good, talented folks in our industry perform at a higher level. They perform better. So if we have high performing teams, I think we'll be able to offset some of the labor challenges, and businesses are just as efficient, if not more than they were previously. And we get a lot more creative in how we're designing our menus. And I think that's where it comes down to. We can look at a menu engineering spreadsheet and break down where all of our costs are and dig in all to the numbers. But if we don't have a creative group of people looking to push the boundaries on certain ingredients that we can incorporate into our restaurants, I think we're going to end up losing. So I think that's where we're going to hang our hat, is really just a creative group and diverse ideas floating around to navigate all the challenges. That's why I love this business. It's full of challenges. People hate the business because of all the challenges. I love it because it always allows us to reinvent and to reinvigorate our teams just to think differently. And so I'm excited about the challenges, and I think we'll end up coming out quite well.
Well, I think it's a great attitude and perspective to have, Court, to be excited about those challenges. Admittedly, a lot of discussions I'm having with other operators that maybe don't have that same sense of excitement, but I'm happy to hear that from you. I mean, Ryan, can you weigh in on this as well? What are your thoughts as it relates to issues at hand with supply chain and labor, and how is your business dealing with that? I mean, you have such diversification of brands. I'd be interested to hear how you've managed those challenges.
Well, certainly Court touched on the menu engineering. I mean, that's a constant obviously for all of us, where we're always looking at that and try to find efficiencies, and obviously at the same time find, new products and things like that we can, offer to our guests. But again, I think it kind of goes back to our discussion earlier about experiences. I think that, our minimum wage went up recently, and I think that, Court mentioned as far as like a high performing team. I mean, that's, again, like going back to what's sort of happened the last 2 years, the focus that we've had on making sure that our team was engaged in what we're doing, making sure that they're looked after, has really created that, that they see as a company, we care a lot about our people. So it has attracted some good talent. But to kind of go back to, I think going back to the experiences, I think that sort of for us is always the challenge, to kind of keep innovating in what we can provide, because there is a certain threshold, I agree, that that people are going to be willing to pay. But I think so that's sort of that's the innovation. I think that's the so I don't know. I think that, like I said, the menu engineering is obviously key, but I think the experiences will be allow us to create more value if we have to raise prices, because I agree with Court, you can't just tack on 5%, 10%. It doesn't always work. I mean, sometimes you have to. You have to do increases, and we've been seeing that. In our market in BC, we've seen a lot of increases pretty consistently. Actually, it used to be we would check sort of every so often, how everyone was sort of tracking, and it's every couple of months, even sooner than that, we're seeing big changes, in certain core menu items more often than not. So. It's real. I think, I think also in the media, it's also been a little bit more explained to the general public that things are just going to have to be more expensive. And I think that, again, if they're looking at the positive parts of what's happened the last 2 years, it brought a lot of focus to the industry and what was happening and the challenges that we all face, whether it's supply and, things like that. So I think when now this pandemic that's affected everyone, when they have an issue getting, toilet paper or things at the grocery store or whatever, they understand that for us as restaurateurs, us getting that product, especially if it's at a high level or unique or something like that, it's challenging for us to do that. And so, if we're able to create that sort of sweet spot of the value to that, then, it'll allow us to sort of price it where we need it to be.
The value proposition plays out, absolutely in this discussion. Mandy, I'm interested. I mean, is there a magic number here? Is there a point at which you've gone too far from a menu inflation perspective? What's your perspective on that?
I think it's a fine line, but I think that conversations like this, and it's great in the last 19 months, I've been privy to different panels and different discussions with restaurant leaders and just talking about the different aspects of what goes into a meal served in a restaurant. And I think that, like anything, the more education and the more information you have, the better understanding that you're going to have of the scope. When you think about everything that goes into you not having to cook and go to the grocery store and set your table and think of what you're going to eat, and all the mental prep and the going out and then the actual prep, and really understanding like how tight margins are in the restaurant industry, and like Ryan was saying, which ingredients you're using and where do they come from. Like, we don't have avocados in Canada. They're like, truffle season is only this long in certain areas, and there's so many different elements that people just take for granted. They think, oh well, that's like in my case, your salads are so expensive. I'm like, well, do you know what food actually costs? Do you know what's involved in bringing it here and paying the labor to prepare it a certain way and marinate it and have it served perfectly to you in 10 minutes, and then and all of the things that it encompasses. So I think that conversations and further education and information and discussions and I think that the labor issue is a huge one, and people, it's a grind working in a restaurant. If you're working in a busy restaurant, it's physically taxing. I mean, I worked in our kitchens for 12 years. I developed carpal tunnel syndrome from tossing too many salads, and I had back issues, and it's physically taxing. And there's so many things that people just take for granted when they go just get a meal or order Uber Eats. So I think to talk about it and to spread awareness and people to really understand what goes into that perfect meal in 10 minutes is important. And very long answer to your question, but I think the more people know, the better understanding and maybe compassion they'll have towards what food costs, and not just the food itself, but the people that are preparing it for you.
Could I jump in there for a second?
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Mandy, you hit that nail on the head when we talk about value add. Is people also don't, what we need to get the messaging across is the nutritional content of good food versus cheap food.
Yeah.
And we see value, consumers always see value in price. I've done so many studies in our restaurants where if we do face-to-face and we ask people what matters most to them, and I would say the environmental initiatives, people always say face-to-face. Environment is my number one concern. But if you put them in a closed door situation, environment goes right down to the bottom, and its value is right up at the top. But our perception of value is simply just on the cost of foods, but not the nutritional content. Mm-hmm. If you look at buying something, maybe that's organic or locally made, it has sometimes 2/3 more nutrition in it than something that's been traveled a huge distance to get here. It degrades quickly, especially fruits and vegetables. And so that's the messaging I think we need to get across, that value proposition, that it's not based on price. It's really about what you're putting in your body is what truly has real value.
Absolutely. People will justify $25, margarita pizza from, an upscale Neapolitan pizza. And I love those pizzas, don't get me wrong. And I'll pay what they're asking. But, you break it down in terms of like what you're saying, nutritional content and what those ingredients actually are or what they cost. And then you look at, something like like a huge vegan salad with like toasted pecans and avocados and carrots and cabbage and hemp seeds and all of these things that your body is so happy to be consuming, and it costs, you know, even less than, or we charge less than what a pizza would cost, but people don't see that. They don't make that connection. So you're so right.
The marketing piece on this is so key, right? In terms of how you market your products, the value proposition. Ryan, you were talking about also, you know, the media helping as it relates to educating the population on what is happening. I mean, we're in, you know, some cases what you could consider to be a state of hyperinflation. So the more that people understand that, I think the better off we'll be in terms of folks, you know, realizing the true costs of you know, some of these goods for them to consume at restaurants. Yeah, the other piece, and you all touched on this as it relates to labor. I'd like to go there. You know, certainly if there's any issue outside of inflation that I've been speaking with restaurants about over the last many months, it's about finding people. And you know, there's some programs that have maybe changed federally, which will potentially help with that, but there's much more to do. James, you know, how have you been able to keep employees employed at your restaurants? What are some of the unique things that you've done in order to keep them with you?
I mean, I guess that there's a few things. I mean, number one, I think they're all paid. You know, I think that's the main thing. So I think what's a little bit different for us is that, you know, especially in quick service, is that customers can add tips to their orders, and all those tips go directly to the kitchen staff. So because we don't have any waiters or whatever, and we only have kitchen staff, they get 100% of those tips, which is substantial. It can be an extra $3 or $4 an hour onto their wage. On top of that, we pay, you know, well above minimum wage, so that also helps to attract staff. But also, I mean, we haven't had a lot of issues with staffing. There's a few reasons for that. I think one reason is that we do get a lot of people that want to work at a restaurant because it is 100% vegan. I mean, you do get people that, if you're vegan yourself, you know, it's a lot of people, especially if you're in the food sector, you know, they don't want to be handling animal products in general, right? So there's a big draw to work at a vegan restaurant, and there's not a lot of vegan restaurants out there. So we do get a lot of people that come for that reason. The other thing too is that we really focused on our efficiency of our operations. So for example, our restaurant can run with like as little as one person. Just through the automation technology that we use, our kitchens are highly automated, very, very sophisticated. We use some of the most advanced cooking equipment. Like for example, we don't have a grill, even though we're a burger spot. So it's kind of funny, but anyway, all these things have really helped us because again, we need less labor. We have a special, I guess, an area of labor of people that, you know, that want to work specifically for us, and they get well paid. So I think when you combine those things together, it's a good value proposition for us to attract talent, and we haven't had much of an issue doing that. I think that maybe it's just part of luck in what we're doing or our space, but we've kind of fared pretty good that way.
That sounds more like the value proposition you're talking about as it relates to your brand and why people are attracted to it rather than luck, James. But you touched on technology though, and we don't have much more time here before we go to questions from the audience. But I'd like to touch just quickly on technology. Is there a way that technology can play in restaurants going forward as it relates to labor issues? Ryan, any thoughts on that?
Sorry, how technology can
play in terms of helping with labor?
Oh, geez. Well, I mean, I think with a lot of the virtual restaurants, I mean, that's obviously a huge technology stack to do that. I mean, it's obviously helped us some efficiencies with a lot of the online platforms for reservations and things like that. A lot of our own delivery, I mean, we launched a liquor delivery app earlier in the year. So, I mean, that, you know, it's helped us to expand our retail liquor store business outside of the four walls. So yeah, I mean, I think for sure. I mean, I think it's just technology for sure. I mean, trying to embrace it somehow and figure out how to incorporate it into the business for sure. So yeah, I think there's definitely it's already here. It's already here, I think. So
yeah, and I think the technology play is so important when you talk about your costs of operating a business and fighting inflation, right? Because there's really two options. You either reduce your cost or you increase your price to customers, right? And for businesses or companies that are able to find a way to decrease their costs, they can be more competitive because they don't have to raise their prices as much or at all. So for us, our focus has always really been on that technology piece, because I think the technology piece is key. If you can, like for example, like our fryers, they take like, 20% of the oil of the standard fryer. So we save like huge amounts of costs on our oil. Even though the oil costs have gone up substantially, for us, it hasn't affected us much. So again, it's sort of like, I think as people in the industry, I think we have to always keep innovating and think that technology is a big part of that piece in terms of remaining competitive and running a great business.
Well, even James, you mentioned with staff engagement. I mean, technology, we've been able to utilize different platforms for continuous development for our team. So onboarding is a lot more efficient, constant development, constant learning for them. It's just to be able to create that environment that they're able to learn and sort of progress more. So there's a lot of different platforms that certainly weren't available when I started. So they definitely help and find some efficiencies in the business and create better engagement with the team. So
yeah. Sure. Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, you look at the communications platform, like for example, we use Slack in our organization. So a staff member can like report something right to senior management. It can go, you can do huddles, you can talk about it. Like all these technologies, right, are so important in terms of like how, from communication to operations, to all the different aspects of it. I think it's great to be able to like, as a business, it's sometimes hard to think about that when you're running a restaurant, because you don't think food and technology necessarily go hand in hand, but I think there is such a place for it, which is something to think about.
So we got a couple minutes left here, so I'm going to slide in one more question, but just to remind the audience that you can submit your questions and we'll put them to the panel, or more specifically, maybe to some individuals in the panel, depending on your questions. But as I close out my questions, I have one left really, and I'd love to maybe get a minute from each of you on this. And Cord, I'll start with you. Are you optimistic about the future of this industry? And if you are, why? And if you're not, why? Love to know.
I'm always optimistic, so that's an easy one for me to answer. No, I very much am. I think we still have quite a few challenges ahead of us. I think it's really getting consumer confidence back. And once we see that, I think within the next 6 months, we're going to be rocking and rolling, and we see where people's finances are. They're people are saving a lot of money, and people are missing those experiences. And that's the biggest thing. People have not been able to go out. So we've seen it in the restaurants since we've gone to full capacity in the past week and a half, and it's been a big morale boost for everybody. You can just see the weight that's come off of everybody's shoulders in the restaurants to see full bars and dining rooms. And so, yeah, I'm very, very optimistic that this is going to be, the next 5 years, I think it's going to be very promising.
What are your thoughts, Mandy?
Like Cord, I'm an optimist as well. And I think that I know that as humans, we will always eat, and we will always want to eat together and break bread and have these shared experiences. And as a mom of 4, I am dying to go out to restaurants more and not, be the curator of the next meal all the time. It's exhausting. So I think like a lot of things in the last few years that have kind of been, lights being shone in dark corners and things that need to change, and unacceptable ways and conditions and treatment of people. I'm not just talking about the restaurant industry. I'm talking about, across many different sectors and industries, needs to come into the light, needs to be improved, needs to be worked on, and in some cases burnt to the ground and rebuilt again. And I think that, generally there's a movement and a wave of positive compassion and humanity and better treatment for everyone, and better ways of doing things. And I'd love to be part of that movement. And I think that, it's great creatives and leaders, we can do that together. So I am definitely optimistic.
No, that's great to hear. It might actually maybe a silly question to ask of a bunch of entrepreneurs, but we'll keep going with this theme. James, optimistic?
We're very optimistic. I think if we can make it through the pandemic, which everyone here obviously has, I think we can kind of make it through anything. I mean, it doesn't get harder than it's been. So, no, I really think we're going to see a restaurant boom. To be honest, I think we're going to see, a big shift to the restaurant industry. And I think it's a very exciting industry to be in. And people that have made it this far, I think we're going to be really successful, all of us here. So I think it's really exciting.
We're all looking forward to that boom for sure. Ryan, I'll let you close out this question before I move to the audience.
Yeah, well, yeah, like I said, you have 4 entrepreneurs here. So yes, we're very optimistic. Yeah, I think we were really, really blessed, really fortunate of how us as a company were able to weather the last 2 years, probably the hardest this industry's ever had. And I think it's a testament to the amazing people that have helped to make this company what it is. And so the people, the community were always things that were very important to us, and they were always at the forefront of everything that we did. And I think that we just did what came naturally over the pandemic. And it is, I can't put in the words how amazing it is to see us come out of it. And to Mandy's point, I think, yes, there's a lot of people that share that excitement. We want to go out to a restaurant with some friends and have a good time after this is over. I think everyone's been waiting for that party. So yeah, I'm really optimistic to see, like I said, because of the engagement and that commitment to our team, and because of what they've done for us as a company and the community, I'm really excited for what the future looks like.
Well, I love the optimism from the group. I mean, this is an incredible industry full of incredible entrepreneurs, and all 4 of you absolutely fit that bill. So it's been wonderful to get the chance to ask you some questions today. So let's move to questions from the audience. So got a couple so far that have come in here. So the first one's actually to everyone. Just I'll work around the circle here. So Mandy, I'll pose this to you to start, and then we'll go from there. With increased costs and competition, are any of you considering loyalty or incentive programs for your guests? And if you are, what are you thinking?
It's something we've considered over the years, and we never really went that way. I think that our clientele are quite loyal as is, and not to say that they don't deserve some kind of loyalty or incentive program. But we always try to give a VIP service and a special touch to our guests. So whether it's like they're coming in for the 5th day in a row, they get a free box of cookies. Like, we just have our own organic way, which maybe isn't the best calculated financial way of doing things. But it's not something that we're doing right now.
Okay. Thank you, Mandy. James, your thoughts on loyalty programs?
Yeah, I think they definitely have a place. We're currently working on implementing our own app, so that's kind of our strategy with it. But again, I think the advantage for a business is that you can actually get you do have that customer data, and that there's an advantage as well in both ways, right? Loyalty, they get some rewards, but you also get the benefit of like knowing your customers a bit better and who they are and that kind of stuff. So, and that's something that I think we're always trying to do, like, who are the customers, right? So. Yeah, I mean, and so it's something that we're definitely working on.
Thank you. Court, what are your thoughts on loyalty programs?
Yeah, well, we've toyed around with them a little bit. We've played around, and I think it depends how much resources you have to really manage that loyalty program, to keep on top of it, and to be able to dig into the metrics and see what it's providing you to be able to do that. And so we've used loyalty programs. It does drive consumers back in the restaurant, but where I'm seeing most of our success is similar to what Mandy is doing, is just that grassroots approach of just trying to recognize the people that are coming into the restaurants. We use our open table reservation system, tracking information, rewarding the guests that come in. And I had a fortunate meeting years ago, 2008 financial crisis, had an opportunity to meet with Danny Meyer at 11 Madison in New York City. And I said, what are you doing during this financial crisis? He says, oh, we're doubling down on everything. They had just closed 11 Madison, done a whole new renovation, and we're there. Everybody was scaling back on doing, say, amuse bouches for folks. They were doubling them up. And that's what we've tried to do through the pandemic. What are the things that we can do where everyone's scaling back? How do we offer more? And I think that's we have to consider loyalty and rewards programs in that light as well too. It's got to be, the most impactful is word of mouth, and it's through the grassroots approach of what really are going to drive that emotional connection, right? That's what we're trying to create, is how do you get people invested emotionally into your business, and the only way to do that is by face-to-face interaction.
I love that point. Court, there's nothing better than walking into a place that you love to go to where the people know your name, right? And engage with you. That's a great point and an important part of loyalty for guests. Ryan, your thoughts on loyalty programs?
Yeah, I can send you guys some contacts. We've had a JRG app downloadable in the iTunes store today. We've had an app built for a couple of years actually, and it was for a lot of that. It was certainly to sort of create guest profiles, but it also, you kind of bake in the payment, makes it's literally a second to pay your bill, split your bill, all those sorts of things that we have inside the restaurant. But at the same time, it does incentivize. So as guests dine more, we're able to send different rewards, try out new items, things like that. So we've seen that be quite successful over the years. I mean, there's quite a bit of people on there now. So we still get emails every day that when people get their birthday meal email or notification, they're always over the moon to get something on their birthday and anniversary and things like that. So for us, it was all about creating those profiles. And it's awesome that you mentioned that about the amuse-bouches court, because in our restaurants, that was something that is the exact conversation that we had. I didn't get to meet Danny Meyer. I would have loved to, but we did the same thing. We kind of doubled down, and we've been doing those for some time now, because I think that's you got to be, while people are scaling back, I think the attitude is to try to create more value and give more.
I like what you're talking about, Ryan, as it relates to life experiences and the anniversaries and the birthdays and all those great things that so many people enjoy the experience at our restaurants across the country. Okay, next question here. It's back to the theme of off-premise, and one of you talked about the fact that it's tough to create that experience outside of your four walls. It's similar to an experience within your four walls. So, a question to the group is, how do you intend to extend that same level of hospitality to your off-premise customers, or how do you extend that same level of hospitality out to your customers? So, Mandy, maybe we'll start with you.
Is this referring to delivery or app and that kind of interaction?
Yeah, exactly. So the outside your four walls experience, whether it's delivery, app, maybe even takeout, so that the experience when people get to their homes, they enjoy the experience of your.
Well, we like to really consider our clients' dietary, requirements or restrictions or inclination. So I was at one of our locations the other day, and I saw, and it made me feel better about the service that we were providing off premise. There were little post-its on each salad saying, "I'm not sure if you have a gluten intolerance, but our mock chicken, was produced in a facility that has traces of gluten." So we put it on the side in case, and there's little hearts, and it's a handmade thing. So those values that we tried to not try that we have in our establishments are then being emulated and ripple affected out when it leaves the establishment with little touches like that, or happy birthday to your daughter and a little note because it's a return customer, and things like that really go a long way. And it makes people feel seen and heard and important and recognized, and I think that at the end of the day that's what we're all looking for. So little things like that.
James, I'm going to come to you on the next question because I want to bring this in here, which I think is a really good one as it relates to culture. But maybe Court, can you also just provide us with some insight in terms of how you create great experiences for your off-premise guests?
Yeah, I think that's besides just doing the delivery models, just sending food out in a bag, trying to add a little bit of thank you, so. Just some recognition for it. So similar to what Mandy said, we sometimes throw in, because he recognized somebody, we're doing handwritten cards. And we used to do those in restaurants. So if it's somebody's birthday, we always handwrite a card for them and give them a little gift certificate. So how do we extend that out beyond the four walls? Is writing on the bags, or just putting a nice little card in there as a thank you, or adding in a couple extra dishes. It's like, how do we do that amuse-bouche, Ryan, when it's takeout? Well, we just throw in a couple extra dishes.
Right, that's right.
In the bag, right? And just saying thank you. And that's the only way we could extend that, extend our hospitality outside the four walls. Or, like I said before, when we did the virtual events, it's just kind of our ethos of who we are, engage in the community. Are we going to some of the soup kitchens and just working with the teams there, and And then also dropping meals off to some of those organizations. Like, we're going off to some of these places and dropping meals off for all the volunteers and just saying thank you, right? Just keep us top of mind and just recognize people for everything they're doing to support the community.
Sometimes it's just those little things, right, to make people feel special. Even just a quick little note of thanks, it differentiates yourselves from your competitors. All right, we got time for one last question here, and James, I'm going to start with you. Question picking up on labor and dealing with labor issues. What is more important to restaurant workers, wages or company culture, from your perspective?
You know, I honestly believe company culture is probably more important at the end of the day. I think, you know, I think people will, you know, people will work for various amounts of money, but if they're unhappy and they're in a bad work environment, then it doesn't matter how much you pay them, they don't want to work there. You know what I mean? Like, so we really focus on an inclusive environment. And, you know, being a safe space for everyone. And that's just part of, you know, I think it's just part of our beliefs, you know, as a company. And I think again, being a leader in that space, right? Whether it's like gender neutral bathrooms or all those kind of things that really go a long way for people that you know, that are sort of that work for us, right? So yeah, I mean, culture I think is everything. And I think you need to support that with good wages. But again, I think that just is part of culture.
Ryan, I'm going to let you weigh in on this as well. I have a pretty good feeling in terms of how you're going to answer this based on some of our pre-discussions, but your thoughts, wages or culture?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think every study or stat that I've seen, it's always been culture, you know, for sure. But I mean, honestly, I would say both. And then the reason I say that is because I think that, yes, culture is what we can control as a business, as a company. And I think that, you know, our leaders have always been sort of ingrained in it, try to be anyway, that for our leadership, our whole, you know, our motivator is the success of our people. So I think that sort of culture that we create, that is so important. And so all of those things that James touched on and all the different things we can do within the business, the community components, all of those sorts of things. But at the same time, at some point, I think that the money always comes into it. They still have to live. They you know, a lot of the people in our industry are at that age where, you know, they want a nice car, they want nice things, whatever that is. So, you know, for us, and that sort of, you know, kind of speaks to, like, for us with the diversity in the business, to explore different opportunities to be able to provide as much as we can, certainly to compensate our team as much as we can. Have the culture. I mean, you got to focus on that for sure. But yeah, I feel like we got to try to do both.
Thank you, Ryan. Well, folks, hard to believe that we're almost at the end of our time here. So to all of you, it's just been an absolute pleasure for me to have the chance to chat with you over the last hour. And I'm looking forward to, you know, continue to see your great brands and ideas, you know, come to life, and whether that's in retail or directly in your locations across the country. It's been an absolute pleasure for me. Thank you for all of your insights. And again, just a pleasure. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Dimitri to wrap things up.
Well, thanks, Todd, and thanks to all our panelists today. I know I speak for everyone when I say that this panel is always the most anticipated session annually, and this year's did not disappoint. Common theme yesterday and today has just been, you know, getting through this pandemic and getting to the other side, you know, getting back to our normal. And to Ryan's point in the presentation, you know, getting back out there, spending time with family and friends, and in partying, right? So I think that's very important, you know, as we all look forward to getting over this. So once again, thank you to our panelists for taking part in the session. So I'll make it quick before we close out today. I'd like to remind everyone of the roundtable discussions that are taking place in the networking area directly after the session. Chicken farmers and attitude marketing will be leading the sessions. You go to the networking tab, click on roundtables at the top, and select the discussion you would like to join. Again, we also encourage you to visit the exhibit hall and check out the sponsor and partner profiles, as well as connect with other fellow attendees in the networking area. And finally, with 2 down, we have 4 more sessions scheduled this week, kicking off at 1 p.m. Eastern tomorrow and Thursday. So I look forward to seeing you back all there, back here again tomorrow. So thank you again, Todd, Mandy, Ryan, James, and Court. for joining us today on the panel. Thank you to all our sponsors, and thank you, our audience, for joining us today. We will see you back here again tomorrow. Have a great afternoon.